Hello, happy people, and welcome to your Moment of Zed, the YouTube channel dedicated to the most beautiful car in the world, the BMW Z3, or as the folks in Laxey call it, the Z3. I'm Mark, and today we're going to do a project I've been putting off for a while. I've had the parts for a long time, and it is the front lower control arms, the associated ball joints and bushings. Why? The car's been very loose up front, steering's been loose, it's been tram lining, it needs a refresh, 125,000 miles in the same ball joints, probably a little bit overkill. I am not going to do the inner and outer tie rods, and you're going to see that they are part of the parts kit that I bought for this project. I decided to put those off till next video. I just wanted to not bite off more than I thought I might be able to chew. You should probably do them all together. I mean, they come in the same kit if you buy that kit, and most kits come with all the same stuff. I would do them at the same time, so make sure you watch the next video and then do this project all together. Another disclaimer, in a couple scenes, I get to suspension parts from above, from the top of the engine bay. Easy to do on my 4-cylinder. If you have a 6-cylinder car, I don't know if you're going to have the same results, but take a look. It is the easiest way to go. But before we get to all of that, we have 3 Zeds of the week. And first up, we have Sean from Tennessee with his 1999 2.8-liter automatic coupe. Now, he talked his wife out of a Volvo station wagon way back then. He is the only owner. His car is now probably over 100,000 miles. He's had to do very little work over the years, but recently he's changed the differential fluid, done the spare tire delete, done the seat bushing repair, done a seat height adjuster repair, had the seats refurbished, put on new tires, added some sound deadening material. Next up is new transmission fluid and a wheel refurbishment. Next up, we have Steve from California with his 1997 2.8-liter automatic roadster. Now, Steve is a friend of longtime viewer Jim, who sent the pics in for Steve. Steve's a 15-year owner of this Z3 with 116,000 miles. Mods include the GoldenEye steering wheel, Style 68 chrome wheels, Brembo rotors, an upgraded stereo system, Coney shocks out back, Bilstein struts out front, a rear lip spoiler. Now, Steve also has a very nice M Roadster, which hopefully we'll see more of in the future. Finally, we have Danny from the UK with his 2000 1.8-liter 5-speed Roadster that he's had for 4 years. Now, Danny didn't send me a lot of details, but he did say his Roadster is a delight to drive. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your beautiful cars. If you'd like to see your car on Zed of the Week, please follow the easy instructions in the description below. Now let's get under there and get to that suspension. All right, so the parts kit I went with is by this company. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I believe they're German, and they make a lot of OE parts for BMWs. Now, this kit, which includes all the parts I need, was $350 on FCP Euro, link in the description. And what you get is basically OE and OE plus quality lower control arms, with the ball joints already pressed in. Now, you could reuse your lower control arms unless they're bent or broken, which would be tough to do, but you're going to have to press out and press in your own ball joints. If you can do that, then good for you. I can't and I won't. Also, it comes with the lower control arm bushings and the lollipops, as they're called, and those bushings are already pressed in. Now, I know I could have went with polyurethane and reused my old lollipops, but again, I'd have to press out that bushing, and for my purposes, I don't really need polyurethane. You also get the inner and outer tie rods, which I'm going to do in another video. I'm not going to do that today. Don't want to bite off too much in one day. And you also get the stabilizer bar bushings. Stabilizer bar links, again with their bushings already pressed in and the ball joints already pressed in. So all that's good to go. So it's really a matter of unbolt and bolt. Again, you can pick up a kit just like this from China Incorporated for 100 and some change, I guess, on Amazon. But you know what? For my suspension, I'll pay the extra money. My shift knob, I'll go cheap on. But my suspension, I want it to last. So that's what I bought. Link in the description. Okay, tools you're going to need. It's kind of extensive this time. Let's start over here with liquids, some parts cleaner, some PB Blaster WD-40. You may need a torch. Wrenches from, actually, I've got a 13 mil I don't have in this lineup. 13, 15, 16, 17. That's an 18. It's a 19 identifying as an 18, but it needs to be an 18. Couple of ratchets potentially. Regular sockets, which are 13, 15, 16, 17, and 18. A hammer, although a sledge would be better. A torque wrench. Both kinds of manual ball joint removers, the pickle fork on the right and the kind of pressure screw type one, I'm not sure what the name of that is, on the left. I ended up using both of them, rented from AutoZone. Rest of the stuff's mine, or I bought it for this. Impact sockets 18, 19, 21, 22, and the one on the end, the 24, was used just to hammer the bushing onto the control arm. A 10-inch and two 6-inch extensions and a universal joint, all impact stuff. And of course the impact wrench, you'd be smarter using an electric one. But I think other than that 13 millimeter wrench, everything's here in the lineup. So a bit of stuff. It's a little stuff intensive. Okay, so watching videos of other people do this job, the hardest thing they seem to have trouble with, the hardest thing to do, is to get to that nut that I'm zoomed in on right now on my new piece, which is the outer or center ball joint nut. And you can touch that from underneath your car, but you really can't. You can kind of get a wrench on it, maybe if you're lucky, but turning it, I think, is going to be an issue. Now, I've seen people manage to do it, but they don't show exactly how in their video. So another video I saw, a guy removed his air intake, and I'm coming into the engine bay right now. He removed his air intake and got access to that on the driver's side, sorry. But I was looking here, and it's going to be tough to see. Maybe if we can see it. See if I can get a light on it too. That nut we need to get at is, you can kind of see it in the corner of the screen. It's hard to light it and see it and zoom in on it, but let me see if I can do that. Yeah, you can kind of see it from the light coming out of the bottom of the car. It is that guy right there, and I think I found a way that I can get to that from above, and I'm going to show you how I'm thinking of doing that. I hope it works. Okay, so here's the rig I've set up to do that. Now, every other video says it's a 21 millimeter nut, but I found that mine's a 22. So it's 22 millimeter impact socket, shallow, regular, a universal, again, excuse the lighting, universal swivel, universal joint swivel. This is all half-inch drive. A 10-inch extension and two 12-inch extensions, two 6-inch extensions for a total of 22 inches of extension, plus the swivel. Now, hopefully that's going to come out through the top without hitting anything I could break. And then I'm going to hit that with the impact wrench real quick, and hopefully I just want to loosen it up because it's the last thing I really want to remove. But I want to loosen it first because if I can't, then that's going to be problematic for every other part of this job. Okay, so you can see I put the whole rig I just described to make it easy to say. I inserted through the top, and now it's going down to that nut, and then I went under the car because I needed to get under there to actually set the socket correctly on the nut. Now that's going to rub a little bit again, filming against these two tubes, but just a smidge. And it's just going to be a quick, circular blast from the impact wrench. I don't think that's going to affect those two tubes much. I can't say I know exactly what they are off the top of my head, but I don't think it's going to affect them too much. But there's some, there's just a little bit of tension against them there, and you can kind of see that when I move the, again, all of this is really hard to film. You can see there's a little bit of tension when I move this, and I can't move it so they don't touch. But again, quick spin with the impact wrench, which I'm going to do off camera, and hopefully that will loosen it, and I'll just do the rest by hand from up here. And I put the trolley jack underneath to put a little gentle pressure on that ball joint. Now, I don't think after 27 years it's going to spin, but just in case, I put some pressure on it, just a little bit to hold it in place. Don't want it to spin when I use the impact wrench. Okay, that worked like a champ, and I don't think I damaged anything, amazingly enough. I'm going to go ahead, and my plan is to actually practice on the driver's side, and tomorrow I'll film myself doing the passenger side, because you don't need to see both. It's pretty much the same thing, except for access to that same nut. I have taken the same rig that I used on the driver's side that was successful, and I've put it on the passenger side right here by the corner of the washer fluid reservoir, and that goes straight down pretty much past this pipe. It really doesn't touch much of anything on the way down, and let me get underneath and show you where that is. There's better access to this, but if it works, it works. Okay, so we're underneath the car, and excuse the shaky cam. There is that rig I described, the 22 millimeter, and that nut is obviously, we could zoom into the right place, that nut is right under that. That's good to go, and up by that fluid reservoir, like I said. So I'm going to hit that with the I'm going to put the trolley jack under it like the other side. Then I'm going to hit it with the impact wrench. It's going to loosen that up. I don't want to take it all the way off. That's actually going to be the last thing I take off on either side. Okay, so as I said, I was going to do the driver's side as proof of concept to make sure I could do it. And then I'm going to do the passenger side and show it to you in detail. So driver's side worked like a champ. I was actually very surprised. There's the new sway bar end link connected to the new lower control arm and the new ball joint in the hub and the new lower control arm bushing tied into the frame, and of course the center ball joint, which is the one we took the nut off from the top. It looks good. It all went in nice, so let's get to the details of how to do it. Okay, so we're on the passenger side where the old lower control arm is still installed. My idea, and I've seen this done different ways by other YouTubers, is to loosen, take off one particular thing at a time. My idea is loosen everything first, and then when everything's loose, we can deal with what we want to take off first. So I'm going to loosen up the two bolts from the lower control arm bushing to the frame. These are 17 millimeters. Okay, on the sway bar end link, I'm going to loosen up the nut there, which is a 16 millimeter. I'm going to loosen up the nut and bolt here, which is a 13 millimeter. And very importantly, the first thing I'm going to loosen up on this end link is this guy here, which is also a 16. So I'm going to loosen all that up first. And by the way, you are reusing this nut and reusing this U-shaped bracket when you put it back together. So we'll clean that up and reuse it. Okay, and I know from hard experience, the most difficult thing to pull is going to be and again, sorry, it's the most difficult thing to film too, is going to be that nut that holds the hub to the control arm. That ball joint will be very difficult to get out. Definitely, I'm going to clean the top of the threads with the wire brush. And on all these connections, I'm going to hit it with some PB Blaster and let it sit for a few minutes before I go at it. This particular one is definitely going to require a pickle fork type of ball joint separator, which you can rent at AutoZone or any of the other places that rent that kind of stuff. And I know it's going to be hard, so we'll see how hard it is. And of course, yesterday I already loosened the bolt that holds the middle ball joint to the front subframe. So that shouldn't be too hard to get out, but got to take it out the rest of the way and then separate it. That'll use a pickle fork for that as well. So I'm not going to make you watch me wrench. I'm going to do this and I'll show you when everything's loosened up and tell you how difficult it was, because it's really hard to film under here anyway, especially when I'm trying to work. Okay, so I've got almost everything loose. A couple of hot tips I didn't mention earlier. That end link connection to the sway bar, you're going to need to hold the inner part with a wrench, and then I just used a ratchet. Otherwise it will spin on you. So something to keep in mind. And again, that's a 16 on both sides. Okay, and another hot tip on, again, that one I think is going to be difficult, the outer ball joint to the hub. The nut for that came right up, but what you see that happens is the nut can only travel to the bottom of the connection to the strut, and it's going to be stopped, so you can't take it all the way off. So you're going to have to take the pickle fork into that space, break loose the tapered end of the ball joint from the hub, and then that will drop, and then you can pull the nut the rest of the way off, and since you've already loosened up the taper, it will be ready to come out. So I'm going to work on that right now off camera. Okay, it's several hours later, and as suspected, the outer ball joint was a tremendous pain. Couldn't get it with the pickle fork, and couldn't get it with heat and the pickle fork, so I ended up having to detach the strut, push the hub away from the strut enough to get a different kind of a clamp tool that basically pushed the tapered end out of the hub under much force. Had a nice little pop, but it finally came out. So that'll be your problem child. It was a problem child on the other side when I did the struts, and it's a problem child on this side for this. But I basically got this to the point where the bushing connection to the frame is out. I removed all the end link components just to get them out of our way when we worked on that stuck ball joint. And now the last thing you want to do is, and you can see I've got the trolley jack under the center ball joint. I've already removed the nut from the top, and with the pickle fork, what you're going to do is I'm going to lower that, and I've done it already, but just to show you, I'm going to lower that jack a little bit, and then you're just going to stick that pickle fork deeper and deeper until it wedges. And this one on both sides wasn't hard. Wedge it as much as you can, wiggle a little bit, and eventually it comes through. And then when you lower that jack completely, you'll lower the control arm out. Very easy, except for the hard part. All right, once you have the control arm off, I use it as a template because you're going to have to go ahead and put the bushing onto the end of the control arm. So here's the old one closest to you. The new one is here. As you can see, I use this here to orient exactly how the new one should go. To put the new one on, BMW makes a $240 tool especially for this purpose to squeeze these on. It's rather difficult, but the way we did it, and I've had a lot of help on this project from my buddy Pat, thank you Pat, who loaned me his sledgehammer and his services as I held this, and with much trust he pounded that home, and I just used a 24 millimeter impact socket as the collar to hit against and push this onto this rod. So that's all we did. And again, just use the old one to get the proper orientation. Otherwise, you're going to get underneath it on the install and have trouble. Okay, so putting it together kind of in reverse. I inserted the center ball joint bolt in through the subframe, put the trolley jack underneath it, and just started the nut, as you can see there, just so it holds. And then the next one you're going to have to do is that pain in the butt ball joint on the hub. I've just got that part way in and just got the nut started on that. I want to leave everything kind of loose until I have kind of everything together, and then might be hard to see, but there it is. And I've got both those bolts for the bushing at the end started. None of this is tight right now. I also put on, before I started this, I put the bracket for the end link, the one you had to reuse. I cleaned it up and put that on just loose. Now I'm going to put the end link to the stabilizer bar. And once that's in place, I'll tighten everything and tell you what the torque, proper torque settings are. Okay, so I've got everything snugged up below, and now it's time to start torquing. So, I mean, you can start with any one of them. It really doesn't matter. This one is the center one that you access from the top with the extensions is 64 foot-pounds, 64. Okay, the outer ball joint to the hub, the pain in the butt one, is 48 foot-pounds. Now, I don't have any way to get a torque wrench up underneath the strut, so I used a wrench and I did the Gudentight. Good German word for as tight as I could get it. It's supposed to be 48 though, if you got a way to do that. End link components, don't know. I did a good and not too tight. Don't want to stress anything out, but they're about in the same position as the originals with a few threads showing. So I just got that snug plus, I guess. And then I do know the torque spec for the bracket nut at the bottom, the one we're reusing, that is 32 pounds. And finally, the two bolts for the control arm bushing are 34 foot-pounds. Nice and easy to get to. So that's it. We're done. Everything's put up together. Everything's tight. It all looks good. It all looks straight. I'm pretty happy. This is literally probably a 2-hour job per side if nothing sticks. But just know that that outer ball joint's probably going to stick on you, so just be ready for it. Have both kinds of ball joint pullers rented from AutoZone, and you should be good to go. So folks, there you have it. The reality of it is it's not that complex of a project. If things get stuck, and it'll probably be that outer ball joint, like I said 100 times, I would use the clamp type ball joint extractor and not the pickle fork. I mean, you might want to try the pickle fork, but I wouldn't spend too much time on it. It's probably so stuck, you're going to have to disconnect part of that strut from the hub, move it over so you can kind of get at it with that clamp ball joint extractor. I think it's just going to make your life easier. With all that said, if you found this content valuable, please crush that like button as always. And remember, friends don't let friends drive boring.